What's going on, Chicago Cub fans? Listen, if the Phil Maton signing has you excited about what the Chicago Cubs bullpen potentially could shape up to be, then you definitely want to check out this episode because I have news for you that will rock your world. The Chicago Cubs are reportedly not done yet, and the next fish they reel in is going to be even bigger, better than Phil Maton. Hey, guys, listen, you don't want to miss this episode of Chicago Cubs Central. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. Hey, yo, listen, I'm your host, Mike Jones, here with another episode. Do me a favor. If you're excited about the Chicago Cubs and they're coming up free agency, especially with the winter meetings not far away, then listen, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that share button, and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single moment of what we have going on over here at Chicago Cubs Central. Remember, this is your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. Now, everybody knows I did a breaking news episode way early Saturday morning where I talked about the Chicago Cubs signing Phil Maton to a 2-year deal. It's apparently supposed to be a 2-year plus an option for a 3rd-year deal. So that's another deal that the Chicago Cubs have worked out that is going to go probably in their favor. And hopefully Phil Maton is able to recreate some of the magic that he has on other teams that he has played for, such as the Guardians and what he did for the Cardinals. He didn't necessarily have great success with the Rangers once he was traded to them from the Cardinals, but there's a lot there to that and reasons to that. Phil Maton is, once again, like I said in the breaking news episode, he is someone who is going to get a lot of swing and miss. He's going to induce a lot of swing and miss. He's going to miss a lot of bats. And because of that, he's somebody that I believe Tommy Hotovy is going to be able to pull the best out of. After seeing what the Chicago Cubs did this past year with Brad Keller, after seeing what they did with Caleb Thielbar, with seeing how they reshaped their bullpen, I feel like the bullpen was like the least of my worries. I'm more worried about how we're going to score, how we're going to break these growing droughts, and how we're going to be able to get better around the margins in scoring and stop these droughts from being a month and a half to limiting them to maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where the Chicago Cubs can get consistent play out of 2 and 3 guys at a time so it keeps everybody afloat. I think that's something that the Chicago Cubs need to look into and something that should help us when we're thinking about building out our roster this season. However, this episode is about bullpens because there's a couple of things to note here. First and foremost, the Chicago Cubs are notorious for signing players, to 1-year contracts, especially in building out their bullpen. You look at Caleb Thielbar, you look at Brad Keller, you look at guys like that, outside of guys that they call up from their own AAA. If they go out in free agency and get you, the Chicago Cubs front office brass has been notorious for signing guys to 1-year deals, almost like prove-it deals. They go and they find these guys that might have won in 1 year or one day had been, the biggest thing out there, but unfortunately, whether it be through injury or just, not necessarily playing as good as or pitching as good as they had once at one point in time, the Chicago Cubs go find these guys, bring them into their system, have them work with Tommy Hotovy and the other pitching coaches. And of course, these guys then are ready for the season. They find something, they tweak a couple things, fine tune a couple of other things. And then these guys are right back out there pitching like they're amazing. You've seen it happen with multiple Cubs players, not just this season. Last season, year before that, the Chicago Cubs have been able to find value in AAA guys that'll sign a AAA deal and then come up to the majors and get called up and pitch for the Chicago Cubs. And these guys find their way onto the main roster, whether that be because of injury to other players or because, like somebody like Ryan Presley, they get DFA'd and the Chicago Cubs have a need that needs to be filled. So these guys get an opportunity to prove that they can pitch on the major league level again. With that being said, the Chicago Cubs have found themselves in an interesting situation. We know, and they know, that we do have to build the bullpen this season. As of right now, you're looking at potentially only having Daniel Palencia. He cannot be the only bullpen arm that you have. Brad Keller is still a wish away. We don't really know what's going to happen with Brad Keller. Multiple reports come out that teams are very interested in him. And I'm not just talking about teams interested in him being a closer or being a bullpen arm. I'm talking about teams interested in him being a starting pitcher again, which he has not been in a few years. So when you look at this, you say to yourself, man, the Chicago Cubs really rehabbed his career. And this could be the place to go where a journeyman may want to go to rehab their career. Like, man, listen, I can get with Chicago. They'll give me a chance. They'll give me a prove-it deal. But one thing that is consistent with Cub fans is that Cub fans do not want to keep going the cheap route. They don't want to keep going the prove-it years. They don't want to keep going with the younger guys. They want these guys to come and spend money on the big names. You guys commented on the videos. Some of you weren't even impressed with Phil Maton. I mean, like I said, you were like, yeah, okay, cool, Mike, that's fine. But what about going and spending money on an arm that we know is going to produce? So Michael Cerami of Bleacher Nation wrote an article, and I liked it, so I wanted to kind of reference it a little bit for this episode. He said, according to the source, the Cubs remain engaged in impact free agent relief market even after signing Phil Maton last night. Nothing is thought to be close, but Maton won't likely be their only established relief signing this offseason. In fact, it sounds like they're aiming even higher than Maton or for their next target. Who might that be? Well, you could probably keep Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez off your Christmas list. Didn't have those guys on there anyways. Those guys are expected to command much more in both money and years than the Cubs are likely to commit to any reliever. But I don't think you can keep open I do think you can keep open the possibility of a Craig Counsell reunion with one Devin Williams, or perhaps a Cubs reunion with Brad Keller. Devin Williams is coming off of not so strong of a year pitching for the New York Yankees. The guy struggled. I mean, point blank. He had great moments, but he did not have what he had when he was pitching in Milwaukee for Craig Counsell. Now, I've mentioned Devin Williams before, but I have not dug in depth. Devin Williams is a relief pitcher, closer. He was for the Brewers before the Brewers traded him to the Yankees. And again, somebody that can come in and be a relief arm for the Chicago Cubs, somebody that can be a lockdown pitcher, someone who can get outs, someone that can hold leads or hold you close so that you can go and try to recover and regain the lead. So Chicago Cubs need more guys like this. And I like that they mention him. I like that they mention Brad Keller. Obviously, I think the Chicago Cubs, I personally think the sources they're talking about are talking about the Cubs going out and signing Pete Fairbanks. I think that he fits perfectly to a T what the Chicago Cubs want in a relief pitcher. It just makes perfect sense. The marriage in itself makes sense, the Cubs and Pete Fairbanks. But I also don't hate Devin Williams coming to the Chicago Cubs either. I'd really like it if the Chicago Cubs went and spent money and got both of those guys. I think that that's a possibility depending on what the market demands and what these guys are trying to get. I look at the Chicago Cubs team and I say, why not go spend the money on the bullpen? If you're not, if you are going to get one more starting pitcher and then maybe one more outfielder to be on your bench, that leaves a lot of money for your bullpen. Why not go spend money on great arms so that you can at least keep runs off the board? If you're going to trust the young kids, which a lot of you seem to believe that Chicago Cubs are headed in that direction, that this is going to be the year of Moises Ballesteros, this is going to be the year of Owen Casey, this is going to be the year where Kevin Alcantara maybe is on the bench for the Chicago Cubs too, playing here and there. So if that's the case, What you got? We don't know what the Maton deal was yet, how much they paid him for it, too, and a probable. But I mean, what? You probably have somewhere around $150 million left to spend if we're to believe the rumors about the Chicago Cubs having a cap. Why not go spend that money on bullpen arms? If you have basically an unhittable bullpen, you're going to win a lot of baseball games. You're going to be at the least, like San Diego was last year, a second seed in the wild card. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think building up your bullpen gives you a great opportunity and a great advantage. And it is an important part of what the Chicago Cubs need to do. They have to have bullpen arms that can help out, especially if their starters, get injured or don't necessarily have it that day. So I like the thought of Devin Williams. I like the thought of Pete Fairbanks. I like the thought of getting both of them and bringing them to the Chicago Cubs. They're both veteran pitchers. And you also have Devin Williams has been associated with Craig Counsell, knows Craig Counsell, and has pitched for Craig Counsell before. So the relationship is there between these guys, and that trust is probably there too. So I wouldn't be shocked if Devin Williams is a part of the Chicago Cubs this season. It also would not shock me if Pete Fairbanks also is a part of the Chicago Cubs this season. Now, what is shocking me is that apparently the Chicago Cubs are going to make adjustments to how they do their contracts. That part is shocking me because we've known the Chicago Cubs to give 1-year deals. That's just kind of what they do. Or they try to they try to stall you out or make a trade for somebody that's on an expiring deal and hope that they can, come to the Chicago Cubs and contribute this season on a prove-it deal. But the Chicago Cubs, according to multiple sources, are switching up how they go about constructing these deals. Because more now than ever, especially with the lockout on the way, players want stability. Players want stability. Players do not want to have to wonder if they're going to have to negotiate another contract, another deal. This is exactly why we're missing out on Kyle Tucker, y'all. Because Kyle Tucker is about to go and command 10 years, easily $200 to $300 million on the market. And he'll get it. Whether that be through the Blue Jays, whether that be through the Giants, whether that be through the Yankees, somebody is about to pour in and commit that type of money to Kyle Tucker. And they should. And they should. The Chicago Cubs could have had Shota. Well, they do have Shota. They could have had Shohei Ohtani, but the Chicago Cubs also refused to do the contract the way Shota and his people wanted it structured, where the money is basically backlogged and you pay over a certain amount of years. Chicago Cubs just want to do contracts the way that they want to do contracts, and it's cost them. It's cost them opportunities to have generational talents like Shohei Ohtani, like Kyle Tucker. So we'll see. We'll see. Apparently, like I said, I did an episode earlier this week where I told you guys that Alex Bregman, Chicago Cubs are all in on Alex Bregman. They want to come to the table. They want to have a seat with him again and potentially work out a deal. We'll see. We'll see this time if they're willing to commit the years. It's never quite been about the money a lot of times. It's more so been about the amount of years. You guys got to remember, the Chicago Cubs have not signed a relief pitcher to a multi-year deal since Craig Kimbrell. That was a long time ago, folks. Long time ago. So I like the fact that they're switching things up. The front office is switching things up. They're thinking differently. And I'm hoping that this leads to some more sustainable deals and keeping a sustainable team together. Once you get a good core together, they should have years to play together. It shouldn't be this carousel every single season of who's going to be in our bullpen. Oh, we got to rebuild the whole bullpen. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Let's get some consistency together so that they can gel and grow together. That's just my thoughts. But I need to know from you guys. Are you excited about the Chicago Cubs potentially signing Devin Williams? Do you want Brad Keller back? What were your thoughts on Brad Keller's season last year for the Chicago Cubs? And listen, also, are you excited that the Chicago Cubs are finally getting with the times and going to do deals with more years if the player is potentially worth it? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, go Cubs, go.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.